Welcome to DT2 Comics Chat Review. Today we'll be reviewing The Flash, Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot. But first, a word from our sponsors. Read comics. Your enjoyment of a show is enhanced when you read the original source material. Click on the link below this video to get some outstanding comic recommendations. The Good. This was just a fantastic pilot. It was directed by David Nutter. So he has a 12 for 12 or 100% record of all of his pilots getting picked up for series. So it's just fantastic. It shows us the hero. Grant Gustin is so well cast and so good in the role. We immediately begin to emotionally attach to Barry. We understand his journey in terms of being bullied. And man, Michelle Harrison and John Wesley Shipp convince us in less than 5 minutes total on screen that they are his parents, that they're good parents, and that they love the ground that he walks on. I mean, you know, that's when you have a really, really solid actors, man, when they can bring it with a small amount of screen time and a small amount of dialogue. We completely believe in this family. We completely believe in the love that they have, and that's key to the Flash series in this whole episode. It's that foundation of love that Barry feels for and from his dad and his mom that drives him. And we get all that in less than 5 minutes. It's incredible, okay? So flash forward to present day, and we see Barry kind of bumbly, kind of stumbly, so he has a little bit more of a original or classic Peter Parker vibe going on. But when he does show up, he's good at his job, okay? And that's another excellent thing in this pilot is we see Barry do what he does in terms of analyzing forensic evidence and doing it with the best of them and getting details that no one else can really get. Now remember, this is before his powers. So this is all Barry Allen. This is no Speed Force energy helping him do this. And it's really something I wish they had continued throughout the series because it's one of the things that we like about him right away. We like to see him do what he does. So that's fantastic. The whole setup for the particle accelerator explosion is really good. Now, if you notice, when the Flash is created, the whole scene has no dialogue. So they tell us, we understand just by watching everything that's going on, which is great. It's true and accurate to the comics in terms of the look. What's new is the chemicals kind of going up and being in suspended animation and kind of giving us that warning in the air. The same thing happens to Barry when he's little. That's when we know that Speed Force energy is around, when the liquids get vertical and they slow down, okay? Now, one thing that's also communicated very, very clearly is that it's the combination of the lightning and the chemicals that is surging through his body. And I want you to notice that it takes Barry 9 months. Okay, that's the length of a pregnancy, 9 months to come out of that coma with his powers. When he does come out, he reacts like anybody would react to find out they have powers. And here's the thing, he can't control all of them right away, which again is very, very good. Caitlin and Cisco are very, very good as his immediate team. I won't call them sidekicks per se. They're really more a part of a team because both of them add significant functions to what's going on with this particular iteration of the Flash. And they're both doing their jobs as soon as we meet them. So we get their personalities, we get what they're bringing to the table right away. Probably the best casting decision they made was Tom Cavanaugh as Harrison Wells, and later on we find out that's Eobard Thawne, aka Professor Zoom, Reverse Flash in disguise. Because what they use here is they use the snake in the garden technique. They use the enemy within. They use the monsters right next to you approach. And that's always way more scary than the monsters, out somewhere and he has to track you down and try and come and get you. He's right there, hiding in plain sight. And Tom Cavanaugh plays the mess out of this role. I mean, it's just fantastic. As soon as you see him on screen, every word he says is dripping with menace. You can't quite put your finger on why he creeps you out, but everything he says is just something about it where there's menace, there's venom, there's poison, there's ulterior motives, there's all kind of stuff going on. And that's the excellence of an actor delivering those lines with that kind of weight in them is just fantastic. And then, again, Barry becoming the Flash is completely believable. I mean, obviously, once we suspend our disbelief on such a thing happening, but it's great. And then we get that little tag, which will also become a trademark of the series. We get a little tag at the end that gives us some mystery and some setup for the next time we see that Harrison Wells is actually not wheelchair bound. And he also has information from the future because we see a 3D holographic newspaper about the Flash disappearing. So right away in the pilot, we set up the whole first season and we're itching to see more. Also, I must mention Joe West, the excellent Jesse L. Martin as Joe West. He's fantastic from the beginning. He's one of those TV dads that you wish was really your dad because he's good at his job, but he has a lot of heart. I really like the way he's aggressive about protecting Barry and, covering for him and still making sure that Barry can keep a job and all of that. So many good things about this pilot, and it hooks you. It hooks you right away. It hooks you watching the Flash zip around. The narration, when it first comes in, is great. Makes you want to follow what Barry's saying. And here's the thing. He says you have to believe in the impossible. Okay? That's one of the defining characteristics of Barry Allen in this series, at least in the beginning. Set up beautifully right there in the pilot. And also, I love the conversation he has with Oliver because we discover when he goes to Star City that everything we've seen so far was kind of a recap as he's talking to Oliver to kind of bring us up to speed in the present moment. And Oliver gives him the best pep talk, as far as I'm concerned, of the whole series when he talks about the way Barry can inspire people in a way that he never could. And he gives him his name. He said, saving people in a flash. I mean, it's great. It's great. It's great. So The Flash was the first spinoff from the Arrow series. And it spawned so many more since then, but it's still the best one as far as I'm concerned. And so just tons of good things to like in this pilot. I love the costume. I love the pseudo real world science that it's rooted in, meaning that Cisco created it for firefighters and created it to resist friction, which makes sense if you've got super speed. I love that it's going to evolve into the costume that we know and that it's functional. It's actually functional. It makes sense that Caitlin will be able to check Barry's vitals while he's in costume, and he has a communication devices so he can talk to his team. I mean, that's just great. That's just a great grounding for that costume, and it's not bright red crimson yet. It's still that kind of dark maroon. Again, it's going to evolve. All that I think is great. The things that I thought were meh in this episode. Now remember, meh doesn't really mean bad. It can just mean, kind of fair or moderate or not really bowling me over. The villain and the villains, the Marsden brothers, were a little bit generic. Like, villains that are just bad because the plot says I'm bad. I'm just a criminal because the plot says I am. They're kind of mustache twirling. They're a little bit of an archetype or a stereotype. So better when we see some kind of motivation, better when we see some kind of reason as to why they do what they do, and then getting powers and just becoming kind of more of a show-off or more, more braggadocious or more just over the top doesn't really help us connect with the villains, okay? I also love the vortex that Barry creates at the end. I did not like the fact that it didn't completely stop him. I thought that it should have. I didn't really like the idea that Joe had to step in and shoot Marsden to save him. But also, Joe's upset that his partner got shot and that kind of thing. One thing I also wasn't too crazy about was the fact that Joe was a skeptic, and Joe was kind of Scully to Barry's Mulder during the whole episode. And then Joe turns around by episode's end. I was really hoping that Joe was going to keep that skeptical attitude because it sets up some really fantastic conflict. One of the best conflicts you see with superheroes is when one of the characters loves the person but hates the hero, because you know that's setting you up for a fantastic reveal when they see that this person they've loved for so long is actually the hero that they despise. So I really, really hoped that Joe was going to continue to be skeptical, continue to tell Barry to get his head out of the clouds, get his feet on the ground, stop chasing after the phantom killer of his mother because his dad did it, stop being late for work, that kind of thing. So we really established Joe as a really kind of practical, pragmatic, feet on the ground, someone who does not have their head in the clouds and makes it their business to tell Barry to get with that program. I personally think Joe should have stayed there much longer, but he finds out who Barry is by episode's end and completely changes his tune. So again, that's not bad. That's a writing choice. I just personally wish Joe had stayed more on the side of skepticism just a little bit longer. What I also thought was kind of meh was the "run, Barry, run" phrase. I mean, I guess they thought it was clever, but they really overdo it. They actually even overdo it in the episode. We didn't really need to hear that but one time, to be honest. It eventually goes on to become a staple, and I was tired of it after the first time I heard it. I'm like, okay, I get it. Ha, ha, ha. Big old wink to the fact that he's going to become the Flash from his dad. Boom, that was enough for me. But again, that's just me. That's not bad. That's just my personal, kind of preference. Eddie Thawne was not bad. I think the concept of Eddie Thawne was good. I think the way they portrayed him was kind of meh. I think he needed to be a little bit more interesting, but I'll cut it some slack for that because we need time for the character to grow. But as soon as we see Iris turn her nose up at him, we knew what was going to happen. And, so he kind of is an automatic red shirt if you know anything about sci-fi or fantasy or superhero situations, but, we'll cut him some slack. It's just a pilot. The Ugly. Okay, hands down, the worst thing about this pilot is Iris West. From the moment she comes on the scene, she's making fun of Barry. She's making fun of who he is, what he does, talking about his nerdy little pathetic dreams, putting down his excitement over the particle accelerator coming online, and talking about when Barry's trying to explain what it means for scientific knowledge. Her response is, does that include twerking? Just no. No, okay? I guess they're trying to paint Iris as exceptionally intelligent because she has a dissertation, which I guess is pointing to a PhD. That's normally what I think of when I hear that word. And it's stolen on the laptop, and we literally never hear about it again. We never see Iris graduate. We never even find out what the dissertation was in. Was it in journalism? It's never mentioned again. And again, she's immediately smitten by Officer Pretty Boy. We know where that's going. She spends the episode mocking and kind of snarling. And then when Barry's about to confess her feelings for her, she completely misreads what he's going to say and says, "Aren't you glad? I know you so well." So you know what they're proving? They're proving that these two are not a match in any way, shape, or form. They're setting up the forced relationship between these two. And here's the biggest pink elephant in the room. These two are, for all intents and purposes, brother and sister. I've heard people argue this down over and over and over again, but eventually they go on to call the same man brother and the same man dad. So how can you make the argument that they are not brother and sister? This was the single worst decision about this pilot and this series, and it's going to hang like a shroud over everything that happens going forward, because this is our worst realization of Luke and Leia, who actually were brother and sister, but these two grow up as brother and sister, and they should not be having a romantic relationship. It's completely creepy for Barry to have these kinds of feelings for someone he grew up with as his sister. And Iris even says, we're kind of like brother and sister. And again, they call the same man dad. And Barry is pining for someone who doesn't know him at all and who doesn't care for him or see him in that way. Okay? I'm sorry, there's very little redeeming qualities about the Iris West character. And the way they set this up just still to this day has me scratching my head. I'm like, why didn't you read the comics? That's why I'm always advocating for people to read the comics. Why didn't you read the comics? Then you could have found out how Barry and Iris actually got together, what their relationship was actually like, and this is a version of the New 52 version of Iris, because the West family in the New 52 world are African American. So that's kind of where that comes from, but it's almost a Chino. It's almost a character in name only. It's almost Iris West in name only, because nothing about her is the Iris that we know. Nothing about her is the traditional Iris, and I'm not just talking about skin color. I'm talking about who she is as a character, okay? Single worst thing in this whole episode. So all in all, it's a great pilot. I highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I like watching it over and over again. That's how I judge these things, is on repeat playability. Do I want to see it over and over again? And my answer for this one is a resounding yes. Highly recommend it. I give this pilot 8 out of 10 only because of the stuff I mentioned, that the leading lady is a complete mismatch for the hero. That's the only thing that stops it from having a perfect score. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell to know when new videos drop.